What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and today I'm absolutely honored to introduce you all to ritualistic abuse, mind control, an organized child abuse survivor and overcomer, TikTok whistleblower and content creator, bringer of hope, stand-up comedian, artist, screenwriter, actress, singer, gifted entertainer, and a woman who took to social media to be a voice for the voiceless, Anya Wick. Raised in a family that publicly masqueraded as Jewish but privately admitted to satanic practices, Anya's childhood was stolen by ritualistic and organized abuse. These horrors unfolded at places like ski lodges, as well as notorious locations heard over and over again on this podcast and throughout the survivor community, like Bohemian Grove. Her father, a divorce attorney and stepmother who delighted in her suffering, orchestrated her torment, while her twin brother, separated at age 4, was groomed into a Disney Channel star, both of their identities hidden behind forged documents. Anya's memories were fragmented by chemically induced and dissociated amnesia through trauma, leaving her to believe her memories were mere nightmares. Her attempts to speak out were silenced by a judge who limited her court testimony to her name and address, by an FBI investigation that closed when her father denied wrongdoing, and by a society conditioned to dismiss survivors as crazy. Yet the truth persisted, clawing its way through her subconscious. In 2015, Anya was diagnosed with PTSD and, in a desperate attempt to escape the cult, transitioned to male, taking testosterone and changing her name to Owen Theodore Epstein. This act, born of survival, freed her from being used in the cult, but left her with painful physical and emotional reminders of the lengths she had to go to reclaim her agency. In 2020, Anya took on the last name of Petrova and later kept her married name Wick, and chose to go public on TikTok in 2024, defying the cult's veil of secrecy. Her raw, unfiltered videos, blending comedy, art, and survivor advocacy, have resonated with millions, creating a community of survivors who found solace in her courage. Messages have poured in all over the world from those who, inspired by Anya, faced their own suppressed traumas, including a 63-year-old man who spoke out for the very first time after hearing her story. Anya's mission is clear: to dismantle the stigma surrounding ritual abuse and mind control, expose the interconnected web of elite power spanning politics, Hollywood, media, and beyond, and give a voice to the voiceless. She believes Jeffrey Epstein was a pawn, his publicized downfall a distraction from the deeper inner workings of the cult, which continues to operate through perpetrators and abusers who still walk free to this day. Her encounters with politicians, celebrities, and others reveal a world where compromise, blackmail, and bribery ensure silence, with ritualistic abuse the thread that weaves the tapestry together to forge loyalty through trauma. Despite the personal cost, estrangement from her siblings, financial struggles, and the constant threat of being discredited, Anya remains undeterred. Her creative outlets, from stand-up comedy to screenwriting, are her acts of defiance, transforming her pain into art that heals. Her dream of a flooded, light-filled childhood home where her father appeared as a redeemed equal reflects her hope for reconciliation and healing, not just for herself, but for all survivors. To them, to all survivors, she offers a powerful message. You are not weak. You are not what happened to you. You are loved. Anya calls for survivors to claim their power, not through perpetrating abuse, but by speaking their truth to break the cycle. Anya stands today as a beacon of hope, a survivor who turned her pain into a ripple of change. Her TikTok community, built on mutual support, is a testament to the power of collective healing. As she navigates the challenges of speaking out, she remains committed to advocating for future generations, ensuring no child grows up questioning their reality or wondering why no one stood up for them, as she would often wonder as a child. Her story is a call to action to survivors and allies alike. The fabric of secrecy can be torn apart, and in its place, a tapestry of hope and empowerment can be woven. Through her courage, Anya not only survives, but thrives, lighting the way for others to reclaim their power and to rewrite their stories as well. Before wrapping up the introduction of today's guest, I'd like to share just a couple quick reminders and updates. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, if you wanted to share any information privately with me, or if you were interested in submitting a written testimony for my upcoming book series or to be featured on a Substack article, you can reach out to me via email at imagineabetterworld2020 at gmail.com or standbysurvivors@protonmail.com. Additionally, I've teamed up with a couple of my favorite brands to offer you guys exclusive discount codes on products I love, such as Rife Technology frequency machines and CZTL's premium methylene blue. You can find all the relevant links and codes along with other resources down below in the show notes. Your support across all platforms is greatly appreciated, you guys, especially as I've had to shift to alternative streaming platforms such as Rumble and X, following the extreme censorship that caused my last YouTube channel to be terminated. I've just recently started a new YouTube channel, and you can subscribe to me there at the handle at Imagination Podcast Official that I am now streaming new episodes to weekly as well. This transition to multiple platforms is crucial to continue sharing vital information with the public and disclosure communities. So thank you all on the other side of the screen wholeheartedly for helping to make the imagination the safest space on the internet for survivor, whistleblower, advocate, and educator disclosures. Your support means the absolute world to me and to every guest on this show. So you guys, without further ado, please help me in welcoming today's guest of honor, voice for the voiceless, walking miracle, fierce anti-child abuse and survivor advocate, survivor, overcomer, and thriver, my new friend, and the brightest light in the darkness, the one, the only, Anya Wick. Anya, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's truly an honor to have you on.
Emma, I wasn't ready to cry this early in. I thank you.
You're so welcome. Your story is so inspiring. When I first found you, I had floods of people sending me your TikTok page, and I was blown away by your conciseness and sophisticated ability to articulate such hard things in such a palatable way. And I saw in the comments such beautiful support and people finally getting what survivors for so long have been trying to say, but things have just been sort of sensationalized. They've been used as entertainment. They've been used in fiction movies to the point where I think like reality and fiction just get so blurred. And you're really helping bring that grounded reality back to what children today are still going through, and helping shine a light on that through your own story. So I'm blown away by you and your courage and want you to know the impact you've made on my life. You've helped me find courage within myself too.
Thank you. Um, a- Ask how. I can't imagine someone who's made it their mission to become an amplifier for people like me lacking any courage.
I think for me, because I didn't grow up how you did, I've always tried to fit in with the world. And it's been a journey for me to heal the things within me, to find my own voice that's unique to me and to showcase it, and to be able to combat sort of the barrage of strange things that I'm not used to, like people bullying me online or family
Yeah.
members coming after me from some of my guests.
Mm.
I never dealt with like some of the fear tactics that people like you grew up with. And so it's made me want to sort of shut down. But when I see people like you just continuing on, dealing with things with grace, with love, with compassion, but also fierceness and wanting to make a difference, those things help me pull me out from like my own dark moments. And I'm like, gosh, like humans are so capable of not just surviving like things that are impossible, but of being brave in ways that we're not taught how to be. And we're capable of exceeding so many odds that like we stop ourselves at. And so I'm constantly like pushing my own courage through you guys, seeing what you guys overcome every day. I'm like, damn, if Anya can do this and just freaking blow through everything that's come her way and speak and like go on these big podcasts and amplify her own voice, like I can take some bullies online, like I got this, bring it on. So it helps like ground me in being courageous myself and like continuing to go forward.
It is hard. I have shut down many times through this. I'm full of self-doubt. I stay in a loop of wondering whether my advocacy is helping anybody or not. Constantly flooded with a barrage of people who are displaying tremendous cognitive dissonance. I got a lot of comments that I really should just ignore, but I don't always find the grace not to say something back. And, it's been a push. It's been a push, but there's something forcing me to keep going through it. And it's just really beautiful to have people to hold my hand through it. People like you, or, I'd be in bed right now.
And I wanted to sort of start with that. I know we're going to talk about your story and, where you are presently and of course the things that you're working on. But I wanted to ask you, what did inspire you to come forward? That's a really big step, and it's often a step that most survivors keep themselves from going to. And I was curious if you remember a moment or sort of what was leading up to that, to your decision to put your story out there publicly.
I first tried to speak last August is when I put up my first TikTok video. That stayed at around 200 views until a couple months ago. I think, truthfully, I was acting out of some fear of the future. I was catastrophizing about things that might happen to current abuse victims and how that would affect me later on in life. I think it was selfish. Um, I opened myself up to this whistleblowing out of self-preservation. For years prior, I'd been working myself to the bone, writing and trying to find a way to get in contact with my siblings directly. And they would, they would post on Instagram. They would follow themes that mirrored themes I was working on throughout my writing. But no one was able to say, "Hey, Anya, it's good to hear from you," because that would in itself be an acknowledgement of who we are to each other and the circumstances upon which we met growing up. Um, I got very depressed and very lonely. I had dead-end jobs in Portland, Oregon. My ex-husband moved us there from New York City. There was nothing going on for me there. And I was grieving my mother. I was grieving my mother and feeling tremendously guilty for the current abuse victims who had nobody speaking out for them. I just felt that it was really important to leave some kind of record of the truth just as a life vest.
One thing I really appreciated about how you share this information is that you're very persistent about helping shine a light on the generational aspect of it. I think in society, this stuff can be really hard for normal people to learn and accept. And the way that the movies have taught us that this happens is there's some random crazy person on the street. They get inspired one day randomly to go kidnap and abduct and abuse somebody. And so they act on that. And then all of a sudden, a child is hurt or a young adult is
No,
hurt. And
no.
that's
And
not how this happens.
we know that's not how this happens. I think virtually everybody I know was molested in some capacity. I think most people talk about maybe it was someone their age playing doctor a little bit too friendly with them when they were kids, someone else who was hurt by someone, and it comes from somewhere. It comes from people, I think, for some reason, feeling it's their right to act out in response to the abuse they were put under. It's not like the spirit of Weird Al is inhabiting everybody's uncles. It's not a select few people. It is widespread. I know it's not just within my family, but because my family holds so much power regarding political and entertainment influence, I felt a heavier sense of burden to speak up about it. And of course, I still have cognitive dissonance trying to understand why being a survivor allows people to justify being a perpetrator. Like, I could never, I could never, I could never. Um, but that is the reality. There is not one perpetrator out there who is not victimized as a child. And as long as families keep looking the other way from the perpetrators they love, they are close to, they have loyalty to, they're not just creating more survivors, but more perpetrators. And it doesn't stop. It doesn't help anybody. It might keep the peace momentarily, but you're putting more pain into the world when you turn a blind eye.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And without that aspect of humanizing the reality of this and staying grounded in the fact that this is sort of a generational family business in a sense, this is something that is perpetuated generation after generation. These are people's mothers, these are people's fathers, these are sisters, these are friends, and of course there's the amnesia from dissociation and of course drugging. But so many people attack survivors as they're adults and say, why wouldn't you talk about this growing up? Why wouldn't you share? And it's like, these are the people closest to the child. They are facing the ultimate betrayal where they're not just being abused, but they have to go home after school and
Yes.
live with their abusers. And you think children are going to, if they are aware of anything, that they're going to go tell?
It
You
is so commonplace for people not to recall anything well into adulthood. It
Right.
is biochemistry, even without the inducement of amnesia that my caregivers put on me. The brain blocks these things out so the child can continue to survive. We know this. Doctors know this. It's not new information. But people want to continue to be surprised.
Yes.
It's not surprising. That's just survival.
Yes. Exactly. And so in your family, have you been able to trace how far back or how many generations this has gone?
It has to go back at least to my great great grandparents. I don't know their names. I know the names of my great grandparents, but I was only able to piece that together through confessions I received when I was being abused and reading the lines between recorded interviews by people who are trying to cover up their true identities. What you can Google about the cult of Baal says it goes back thousands of years. But the information that is publicly accessible on the cult is distorted. I couldn't begin to guess how far this goes back for. I couldn't.
Yeah, and it's like that in most of these families. And that's how the secrecy is able to be kept so well because it stays in the family. There's not, like how I was saying, it's not these random people doing it and keeping it a secret. It's passed down, and the secret is very easily able to be kept that way.
Exactly. Exactly. It's easier for people to keep a secret than face the alienation that comes with speaking out against those who they perceive to be tying the family together.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, I think about most traditional families and people want to victimize, not victimize, they want to blame mothers who allow that to happen to their children. If leaving means losing livelihood, they have to make a choice between feeding their child or keeping them away from the perpetrator. It's not anything with an easy solution.
Exactly. And that's another thing people don't understand too is that, again, this isn't somebody leaving a stranger that randomly captured them that they can just wipe their hands of and say, thank goodness, these are, you're literally uprooting yourself from generations of family that you're conditioned and you grow up with and you're trauma bonded to,
Yes.
and then you go into a world where people don't understand you, a world where people gaslight you, and a world where they take away your resources. They have the capability of destroying your reputation, potentially taking your children. There's a lot that you lose potentially by actually leaving. And so you can see why there's obviously more survivors than ever now, which is amazing, who are deciding to leave and speak out, but you see historically why, when you understand how this works, why people don't leave and why, what a miracle it is that all these generations later, like finally somebody like you comes along and says, enough, it stops with me.
I hope it stops with me. And realistically, it might not. My speaking out is not going to take every perpetrator off of the streets. In my greatest fantasies, I see justice against my father, but it won't stop my brothers, my uncles, even some of my sisters from continuing to hurt their children. All it can do is let those children know that they are cared for. And that's essential.
Yes.
I think the best way to prevent a survivor from becoming a perpetrator is simply to care for that survivor.
Yeah, that's, I think, a big difference in why some people do perpetrate. And you've talked about this so beautifully. I love how you sort of share about, monsters, and this isn't your words, these are mine, but monsters, people aren't born a monster. They're
No.
created, they're conditioned to be one, they're
Yes.
abused to be one. No child is born and is like, oh, I'm gonna be an abusive pedophile whenever I grow up. Like that takes such a, tormenting a child to where that's what they turn into is somebody that is that spiteful and abusive. And society doesn't understand that. We just think like, oh, all these people just have an attraction to children. It's like, no, these are
No.
people who they are trying to take their power back, how you talk about. They had their power taken away as kids. And so they grow up as adults craving to get their power back. But the only things that they can control are children and animals and creatures that they look at as being weaker than them. And
That's
so
all
they're,
it is. It's about
yeah,
power. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. They think it's healing for them. But I also have a hard time understanding it. I have a hard
yes,
time understanding
I
how
do.
someone can be serially abusing their child,
Yes.
an extension of their soul, and think that somehow healing them, it has to make them more deeply tangled inside.
Right. Where
I
some of you
cannot
take your
comprehend
power
it.
back by healing and saying, I'm going to heal myself. That way I can give goodness to the world and stop abusing and stop the cycle of anything that I could perpetuate bad into the world onto people around me.
Right, right. You know, so many of my brothers, when their response is just going to be, oh, well, I was abused, so why are you upset with me? Like, because I'm not abusing children?
Right. Yes.
If I can avoid becoming like you, why are you allowing it within yourself? I don't understand it.
It's like some people become what they hated growing up instead of doing the opposite and saying, I'm never going to be that way. I'm going to do the opposite of what somebody did to me and like become my own hero, become the parent that I always wished that I had, the leader, the maternal figure, paternal figure, and some people just they do the opposite and they continue the cycle. They can't break away from it.
It's sad, and it's sad. That's an understatement.
Yeah.
It does feel hopeless much of the time. Um, but it is hopeless if we do nothing.
And so for you, when you were recovering memories, when do you remember your own abuse starting in childhood, or when do you think it started?
As far back as I can remember. Um, I was kept in preschool for several years. I remember being a toddler and that substance kicking in and that switch flipping and trying to run and hide from my father, and then things going black and waking up with my body numb, confused, unable to move and speak before the experience would fade away for a couple of weeks until it would start up again. My father and alleged stepmother, the woman who would repeatedly brag that she had a baby girl who she gave away to another family before assigning me her birth date, they bragged that it began in infancy. And there are physical indicators of that. The chiropractor I used to see said my degenerated discs in my vertebrae most likely stemmed from breaks to my spine as a toddler, because the kind of scoliosis that I had is not usually congenital. And a plastic surgeon I saw for a consultation for my breast reconstruction after my mastectomy, I was feeling around my abdomen. We were considering doing some fat grafting from my stomach, informed me that my abdomen was ripped in half vertically.
Oh, Anya.
So I don't think it was ever not part of my life until I desexed myself in 2015.
For people new to this, why do they start abusing a child so young?
To groom them young, to make them used to it so that they don't have a safe reality to compare the danger to, so that all the red flags just look like flags. If it's all you know, it doesn't stand out as dangerous. And because there is no end, I was going to say because they like them young, but um, they told me they were grooming me to be okay with forming relationships or even having children with my brothers to continue on the bloodline, is what they told me during the assaults. And if you're trying to groom somebody into a certain unnatural behavior, you want to start them young.
And you were actually born a twin and
Yes.
ended up being separated from them. Can you share a little bit about the forged documentation and why they separated you guys?
They separated us because our parents, so they claimed, are twins. And they could have pulled off being together because they themselves were separated from each other. But by turning one of us into a glamorized entertainment product and having the other one someone they only had access to at these family reunion orgies, they were attempting to create a stronger attraction. You see stories sometimes where siblings or even a parent and child meet in adulthood after not being raised together and having an attraction to each other. And that's what they were trying to go for.
And you can see historically, even going back to World War II, when mind control experimentation across the world was starting to catch wind, that twins have always been a big fascination in
Yes.
these different cult systems, these sort of ancient religions, and kind of these medical experimentation, scientific experiments that they've been working on for generation after generation.
Precisely. And interestingly, World War II is the furthest back I've been able to trace my lineage with certainty.
Oh, wow.
Um, both of my great grandparents were born in Europe. And in an interview my great grandmother did with the filmmaker, she indicated that they had met on several occasions in Europe before they both immigrated to the United States, and my great grandfather changed his name.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure who exactly my great grandparents' biological parents were, but a lot was lost in World War II. A lot of documentation, a lot of history, photographs, testimony. And presuming their birth documentation was forged, it would have been much easier to do it back then. If my parents were able to get away with forging documentation in the late 80s, early 90s, there's no reason why they couldn't have done it prior to World War II. But that's really when we lost a lot of records.
Yes. Yeah, and really when they started really much trying to alter the current and past history to start creating this new present and future that they could present to the public and start putting a veil over people's eyes so all of these things that were happening could start happening more in secrecy, and they could start bearing records of the people that they brought over after World War II that were helping facilitate these different experiments through these cult families, and it was a really pivotal point in time that's just been so buried, and it's like only through survivors like you that we're starting to relearn this because a lot of you have some type of tie to it in your family history.
Right. And it's not to deny any of the horrors of World War II when we speak about a
No,
veil over the history. It's just that the conflict itself, I believe, was used to induce a lot of chaos, to put a veil over things that had happened prior.
exactly. And to start creating kind of a new history because they brought criminals all over the world, including the United States, from these camps.
Yes, they
And
did.
made it normalized. They hid their records and got these people to be respected parts of our communities. And it's kind of like what happened afterwards. Like they started just erasing the pasts of these people and making it seem like we're on this path to goodness when they were just continuing. I had a survivor come on and she was like, the Holocaust never stopped. It's just moved into different pockets of the world. Like they're still running the same experiments on people today. It's just not happening in public where it's being broadcasted on the news and, put out in history. It's in secret now.
It is broadcast on the news, but
True.
not in truth, not
Yeah.
when all of the news is owned by one media umbrella. Um, there's so much intentional blinding
Yes.
around the Lower East Side, East Village in New York, where I'm staying right now. On the sidewalks, a lot of activists have spray painted, "What are you doing to stop the genocide in Gaza?" And someone else went around and spray painted over the words genocide in Gaza. Spraying over the phrase doesn't mean it's not happening.
Exactly. That's a good
But,
analogy for that.
but only time will tell how these current events will be reported as having taken place. And with the media monopoly, there's a question even of what we are being told is reality. But Of course, of course, the abuse of the Holocaust never stops.
Right.
The victims might have changed, but the same horrors do persist.
Exactly. And like I was saying, stories like yours are examples of this because you can see the repeated history in the same types of abuses that you guys went through in comparison to what we know about what they were doing in these camps and the different fascinations. Like I said, with twins, even, that's documented. And then you can still see it today in 2025 that there's still a fascination with that in present day. And so you see that these things have just been worked on in a more sophisticated and hidden way, sort of a more industrialized way. And it's not something that they have to do in a camp anymore and take random people. Now they can
No,
just use these different families.
my family, you know, prevalency for twins is a genetic factor. And that's one of the reasons why my father was encouraged to have so many children. There are so many sets of twins amongst my siblings. It gives them subjects, give them subjects to study. And I wish I could say I knew more about what specifically they are studying, but I was seething unconscious. I wasn't in any boardrooms.
Exactly. And then with you and your twin, they ended up separating you and then changing your birth certificates so the outward perception on your records that they gave you would show that you're not twins.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, I think they were trying to give us an opportunity to be together, which is gross to me. And I wish they didn't. I have every single day, I wonder about how different life would have been if our mother ran away while pregnant or had us be adopted. It's so hard for me to fathom why parents would be so okay with separating themselves from their children. But our parents were victims themselves. That doesn't make it okay.
Right.
I forgive my mother. I just don't understand her.
And so how did that arrangement work? Whenever you were separated from your twin, did one parent get one of you and the other got another? And then
Right,
same thing with
right.
your siblings, you all just sort of got separated a little bit?
Yeah, in the case of me and my twin, I stayed with our father and his wife. Well, he stayed with our mother and her husband. In the case of my other siblings, among the sets of twins, you had those who stayed with their biological mothers and whoever those women were partnered to, while the others then, by necessity, would be staying with the family they were not directly related to. And I know they all have deep pain for having gone through the same thing. But and they have to wonder why I haven't been okay with just playing along like they have. But I also do believe I was exposed to the physical abuse with a much higher occurrence than a lot of them did. And I don't know. I guess I'm one of the only failed experiments for being one of the only ones willing to speak forward. But
Or a successful one that your spirit couldn't be broken, that it sort of worked the opposite way. You were meant to be who you were born to be, and they couldn't break that. You were a success in maintaining who you are instead of conforming to what they wanted you to be. They weren't able to break you.
and I do want to see them deep down. Um, there are people I'm furious with. There are people I am sickened by, but they have a gorilla glue grip on the only world I find any sort of creative healing in, and that's very, very challenging for me. Of course, my biggest grudge against my father is that he kept us away from each other. And I do want to see them, but I have to love the children more. And maybe it's best for them I start keeping my head down and try to find a way to just hang out, but it feels like swallowing a bullet. It has me split as my memories were. That's the truth. It has me just as split as my memories used to be. I fully understand why my siblings keep their mouths shut. I just wish more of them felt empowered to stand up for themselves. I can't do anything but try to lead by to can't do anything other than to try to lead by example.
And you're doing that, and it plants seeds, even if they aren't coming forward now, you might be stirring something inside somebody or many of them, and maybe eventually in time they'll join you on this journey as they've had time to sort of process and see that you're here and the worst possible outcomes didn't happen to you, because that can be scary too, I think, for people to lose everything, like how we are saying. And so I pray too that they find the courage that you did and decide that the importance of the next generations supersedes whatever selfish ties they have to keep maintaining that generational pattern that isn't benefiting them or the children that they have, and then the children in the future.
That's my hope. It might be a lost cause trying to rally my siblings. Hey, throw your careers away, humiliate yourselves. It's worked out great for me. But if the current children can see any of this and come to the conclusion that they don't have to play the same game, it will have been worth it.
100%. And you're not just doing that with your own family, but there's survivors all over the world now who are inspired by you and are making changes in their lives that are going to affect so many other lineages and generations to come, because you had the courage to stand up for your own family. And for the little girl that you once were, you became the leader and the parent and the inspiration that she didn't have. You became the person that's standing up for her now. And I know she's beaming at you, and it's beautiful. So don't forget to just there's the macro impact that you're making, but there's also this, or excuse me, the micro impact that you're making and trying to make, but there's also this macro impact that's happening all around you. And you're not even going to be able to take all that in necessarily, because it's happening in ways that are just beyond sort of the supernatural at this point. You've reached people all over the world with your story, that the cycle is starting to break.
And it's overwhelming. I'm shut down by it. I have hundreds of messages from people who want to talk to me about what they've been through, and I feel guilty for not being able to get to them all. I feel such a sense of responsibility for them now, and it's very difficult to carry that while I'm just struggling to keep myself aligned. I have days I can't get out of bed, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Sometimes I open my phone and just weep. It's the love and the hope. But then other days I want to throw my phone against the wall.
Yeah.
you know, for anyone who's tried to reach out, I'm so sorry if I haven't answered yet. I might get back to you in years. I might run into you on the street. Say hi. say hi if you see me in public. That's okay. I don't bite. I'm I I wish I had more organization and more time on my hands to reach back out to these beautiful people because it's been surreal. It's been incredibly surreal. And I know I've made it worth it. I know I've inspired people to walk away from the abuse that they're in, remove their children from the abuse, and that can save a life. That can save a life. It is so overwhelming.
And it is saving lives and it's changing lives. And not only that, but you're giving hope to survivors and even people who didn't go through what you did, just on any level of trauma that people have when they're sitting there and feel so much despair, so much depression, like they will never be able to get out of bed again. And they see you, they feel hope that they too can be where you're at today. And again, that doesn't mean that where you're at is perfect. It doesn't mean that every day is just great, but it means so much to see somebody to be where you're at compared to where so many other people are. So you're also giving people hope to get up and to keep going every day when they feel like giving up. And that too is so incredibly powerful. What a gift to give people.
Thank you. I do wish I had the time to individually respond to everybody.
It's overwhelming. I'm sure you're very overwhelmed now too, getting more publicity. There's probably so many people reaching out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've thought about having somebody help me with my account, help me with those responses, but then I'm not the one responding. I don't want to be sending back like a corporate form email to these people who are spilling their guts out to me. That's horrible. Uh, it is what it is. It is what it is, but it's tremendous. It's tremendous. And I can't thank everybody enough just for hearing me. I never in my life thought that would happen.
It's a miracle we get to hear you when we hear what somebody like you overcame and the things that you were put through so young. I mean, just thinking about living through that, most adults that would debilitate them for the rest of their life if they were thrown into just one of the situations that you were in. And you were put through it repeatedly all throughout your childhood, since you said infancy. It was like just a normal part of your life almost to go through horrors every day, and these are things, like I said, that would break adults. And so going back to your childhood, what did that look like for you as far as sort of your life structure? Were you mostly, or were you always at your father's house? Did you ever visit your mother? Were you taken other places, or was that pretty much home for you?
I never saw my mother outside of orgies where I was drugged. I lived in the home with my father, my stepmother, who publicly masqueraded as being my biological mother, and then behind closed doors would mock me for not remembering my real mother
Oh,
when she was intentionally abetting in my not remembering with her question. I'm not sure whether he was really my younger brother. She and my father, I have to backtrack a little bit. My stepmother and father did have a baby girl in December of 1991 who was given off to another family in Denver so that they could make it look like, yes, Kari was pregnant. She had a daughter. It's Anya. Duh. But people would come over to the house and say, "Hey, Anya, are you still 4?" They told me I was 4 for 4 years.
oh my gosh.
I was 8 when I started kindergarten. And so I lived with them, and I lived with the little boy. My stepmother and father had a boy who was born deaf. And when he was around 4 years old, They told me he was going away for the summer to have surgeries to fix his hearing. And when he came back, he had perfect hearing, perfect speech, and was a head taller. I was also visited a few times a year by my father's son with another woman, who in actuality was born only about 6 months prior to me. But on the records, we were kept 4 years apart. I'd see him several times a year. That was my daily life. I had My father had a bunch of brothers and sisters in Denver who I'd see often. And they had a cabin in the Sangre de Cristos. As I got older, they were very, very careful to make sure I was only assaulted outside of that house in Denver. Whether I was at an aunt or uncle's house or at the cabin or on a vacation to a ski town or out of country or in LA or in New York City. They didn't want me to associate too carefully that home I was raised in with the assaults. It was a deliberate attempt to try to keep those memories from surfacing. And then I'd go to school, and that was a nightmare of its own. There was a girl who was not dosed properly when she was brought to the cabin by my parents and remembered and told my peers when she remembered them boasting about and what had happened. And when our classmates tried to tell me, I thought I was just being bullied.
Oh.
But yeah, I always felt something was wrong with me. I was a head taller than everybody. I would finish the classwork a lot faster. I didn't understand why I related more to people who I believed to be a few years older than me. When I started acting out late in high school, hanging around the punk scene too much, I didn't finish college. I didn't have any interest in surviving. They trained me in the arts while discouraging me from pursuing them, which was incredibly confusing for me. And it was just survival. I poured myself into music and writing as a child. I wouldn't get along with my family, but I didn't understand why. A lot of their comments just went right over my head, and they took me to see therapists who told me, "You're just depressed. You just have ADHD." I was first properly diagnosed with PTSD in 2015, but at that point, I didn't remember anything. And so I decided to transition. I always felt so different from other girls, and I just assumed all of my trauma responses were because of dysphoria. And I thought transitioning would heal those trauma responses. It didn't, but it did get them to stop assaulting me.
And that's an important part of your story. That's a big thing that abuse survivors struggle with. I've heard it over and over again on my podcast of gender confusion, gender dysphoria, grappling with sexuality growing up and just being terribly confused, even to the point I've had multiple people testify going through periods of transitioning genders because they felt so icky in their gender because
Yes.
it was done to them that they just wanted to basically like
It's
peel their
not
skin
it's
off
not
almost.
necessarily feeling icky in your gender, it's just feeling icky in your body
Yes.
and wanting to crawl out of your body. I think so many females who transition are desexualizing themselves to put on a cover, and so many males who transition begin to associate themselves with femininity because they're put into a position of submission. And our society tells us that submission is feminine. And that's something I encountered myself when I was living amongst the trans community. again and again and again. I am fully in favor of people taking bodily autonomy over themselves. And I worry that too many people are using it as a band-aid instead of trying to do the shadow work and face the trauma that impacted their feeling a disconnect from their physical body.
And I've met many abuse survivors that, like you, felt different in their body since childhood just because you do have perpetrators from both sides, male, female, different ages, perpetrating different types of people, whether it's family or different people outside of the family that are brought in. And so it can be terribly confusing trying to grapple with looking at yourself other than being sort of objectified and kind of taking your body and holding it in a way that you can accept it and embrace it because you've been told for so long that you're pretty much worthless, like they've devalued you so much that you can see why a lot of people start as they get older to kind of identify and try to figure out what is it that I can change that can make all this stop, and I've heard time and time again people being like it wasn't necessarily just it wasn't that like I felt my sexuality needed to change because like I identified with it. It was just because I felt if I was a different gender that this wouldn't have happened to me. If I was a
Yes,
man instead of a woman, they wouldn't be perpetrating on me. I could make it stop if I would just get out of this
exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
I was taught again and again and again and again that the only reason I was kept alive was to be assaulted and to breed more assault survivors. And I have this fantasy about, oh, if I were male, I'd be happy. As that's because if I were male, I wouldn't have received so much abuse.
yes.
I would have been abused in my family, but not to the same extent where my brothers were trained to help bind me as I started fighting them when the drug kicked in.
Oh my gosh. And do you know what drugs that they had used on you as a child?
I do. And I've made the mistake of naming it in one video before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anybody finding my testimony and using the same tool that they did. And the media has covered it up before. There's this one beloved sitcom actor, family figure who they said was giving women a pill. It's not a pill. It's something else, but I would rather not keep naming it.
Absolutely. Yes. It's so common though. That's always a factor in this is the drugging. And then that alone causes a lot of confusion because you can see if you're not in your right consciousness and you're a child who already has an extreme imagination, you don't have your brain fully developed yet anyways, and can sort of you have to use your imagination basically to like construct the world that you're in. And there can be so
Exactly.
many different ways that these different scenarios that they put you in, right down to say a satanic ritual where there's people dressed up, they're in costume. A lot of the abuse, people wear costumes as well. And if you're not in your right consciousness and you're a child with an imagination, those things can feel and seem very real in those moments. And then it's only in hindsight as an adult where you can sort of start peeling back those layers and say, that's weird. I have memories of, for example, a Disney character abusing me. How could that be true? Or I saw an alien, and then if you can sort of look at it like it's not necessarily that memories are fake, it's that sometimes the perception of what that reality was might be wrong. And so you have to look at
Exactly.
all the different scenarios. Was it grandpa who was my abuser dressed as an alien who was abusing me? Was
There
it a
you go.
drug?
There you
Was
go.
it? Yes.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I didn't encounter costumes very often. They did wear robes at Bohemian Grove. But I think in my case, the nature of the substance was they tried to have me go completely unconscious so they could do whatever they wanted to me. But if I did have any neuroactivity, I was, whatever, riding a unicorn through the sky. Like, I'm somewhere else entirely. I'm somewhere else entirely. And, this drug, it comes in peaks, right? It doesn't just knock you out. It doesn't send you straight into hallucination. Um, but so there were memories that were retained when I was not yet unconscious or had just been waking up out of it. But because I was in a different mind state, it was locked away in a different part of my mind. And it was very bizarre to me to have memories of being assaulted by my brothers or my stepmother laughing at me, calling me retarded, reminding me for the 500th time, I'm not your mother. Your father's twin sister's your mother, you stupid bitch.
Oh,
That was so incongruent with how they were in day to day life when I was not being drugged. So it might have been a perfectly clean perception of reality, but my brain wouldn't accept it as such. Not until, it took about a year for my therapist to get me to understand that those were real memories, that there was no motivation for people to drug a child and brag about assaulting them without assaulting them, or for them to make confessions that were consistent across assaults if those confessions were not true, especially if those confessions were made when I was in a state of mind that they thought ensured I was never going to remember.
exactly. And you brought up too, so this was the cult specifically that your family was a part of was the cult of Baal, which was
Yes,
the fertility cult. Could you share a little bit about kind of, I know that this goes back a long time, but a little bit about that specifically?
I know very, very little about it.
Yeah.
I mostly because I was being abused at most of the gatherings, most of the times they admitted it.
Yeah.
Bal. They worship Moloch, which is a satanic deity, and it makes holy this forced incest, forced inbreeding. They believe it is holy for them to cross such an unholy line. It's gone on, what you can Google about it says it's been around thousands of years. They say it's been wiped out. Of course, it has not been wiped out. And many, they're publicly Jewish, right? My ethnicity says Jewish. I had a bat mitzvah. But I remember I got Passover Seders at grandma's, my cousins or brothers, who knows, saying, we're Satanists. We worship Moloch. What does that mean? They said, you've already had the fruit juice. You're not going to remember tonight.
And so being a fertility cult, were you or others in your family being groomed to be breeders for this cult as well?
They told me again and again I was being groomed to be a breeder for this cult. Yes.
It's
And
horrible.
I've not given birth. I was given a full hysterectomy in 2019 upon the advisement of my family and my doctors because testosterone can cause uterine cancer. And instead of being advised to quit this external hormone that was giving me uterine pain, they said, well, we're going to remove your uterus and ovaries completely. and that was it. So
And who knows what they did with your eggs or anything else that, they took out of your body too.
I think we can plainly speculate, but I'm not comfortable making speculations as the rest of what I'm speaking on are direct memories and experiences.
Absolutely. Yes. I completely agree with you. Yeah, there's so many different roles that you have your front life where you're going to school, you're associating in society, you could be going to church, and then there's all these different layers of things that they're grooming you for behind the scenes in this sort of back life. Were you started in entertainment and acting and all that very young, or did they get you into that whenever you were a little bit older?
I was very young. I was very young when I was thrown into acting and music lessons,
Yeah.
while at the same time constantly being around conversation about how, yeah, it's very hard to break into that industry. It's not just about talent. You have to know all the right people and making sure that art and entertainment was constantly a part of my life, but telling me I had to find something else to study. And I didn't know what else interested me. I didn't really care to do anything else. Um, I never even tried. I never even tried. I did some work in film when I finally moved to New York in 2017 as Owen. I didn't really know what was going on then, of course. I was keeping myself associated. I'm not sure why they did that. I'm really not sure why they did that. Why they would train me in a field and discourage me from pursuing it. But it was torture. It was torture.
Yeah, 100%. And that had to have been very confusing. Like you said, they're training you for this and getting you into these different acting, singing, these different facets of entertainment, but then not letting you excel in them and
Right.
pursue them.
While I'm rushing home from school to watch my sisters on TV. It was torture.
What other things were they grooming you for? Was that sort of the main, were they grooming you with the entertainment industry and then also for future breeding programs? Do you remember any other pathways that they had you doing behind the scenes?
It's one and the same.
Yeah.
It's one and the same. I think the hope was that I'd go against their advice. I'd rebel against them telling me not to pursue it and go to LA when I was young and fall in love with some of my brothers. I don't know. I don't know. My father practices family law. I think for a time he hoped I would maybe choose that profession. If it wasn't for me. My stepmother is a cellist. I don't think they cared about what I did with my life. They just wanted me to have children.
Yeah. And you've mentioned in school you were recognized as being gifted and talented and were placed in these programs, which I think is actually pretty amazing, seeing as though you're going through all the stuff behind the scenes and you're excelling in school. What do you remember about?
Okay, yeah, I was in the gifted and talented program, but I was also 3 to 4 years older than the rest of my peers.
Oh my gosh.
I was doing work that was at a level appropriate for my true age. I was recognized amongst my peers for being exceptionally creative. Even as I got older in high school, I remember people shit talking me and then in the same turn saying, but she's an awesome singer. Um, no, I was doing academic work that was consistent with my true age,
Yeah.
but they had me living as if I were younger just to keep me further from untangling the mess. Whereas my twin brother had documents forged to reflect him as being 2 years older so they could put him to work and start profiting off of him faster.
Horrific. Especially to do that to siblings and to a family too. Like you're just commodities that they can kind of throw around and use instead of love and keep you guys together so you can bond.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't imagine losing a sibling that young. That had to have been so hard for you to just be separated. I mean, I'm not a twin. I can't imagine the bond that somebody has with a twin. That had to have been really hard.
It was painful. It was really emotionally confusing.
Yeah.
We feel each other sometimes. Twins do. And I think for both of us, it just contributed to so much emotional stability, instability that we couldn't account for. If one of us was in distress, the other is feeling it and not entirely sure why. But being separated from him and our mother really just contributed to a deeper level of severance in my memory. That event just made me shut down. It was so much easier for me to block it all out than remember anything.
Absolutely.
And then I'm seeing him only when we're getting assaulted together. Um, he's had a very hard time in the public eye with his relationships. He's been sued for interpersonal abuse. And what happened to us certainly does not excuse any of his abusive behavior, but it does account for his instability.
Yes. When you understand what these kids go through, you can see how it can form them later on as adults, like how we were talking about earlier, the trauma from that and trying to recover. And if you're not given a safe space to do that, or if you don't create that for yourself and you're just constantly burying it, that's going to manifest in your life somehow. And
Yeah.
it's really sad, that they sort of permit that in these systems. They don't allow that safety. You're constantly being handled and you're constantly being around influences that keep you that cycle going, and so how somebody's supposed to react when they've been tortured as a kid and neglected and abused, they're going to grow up and without having healing and love and compassion and somebody helping them through that, and finding their worth again, that they're not going to react negatively somehow. Like, of course they're going to. And again, it doesn't excuse it, but it can certainly explain it.
Exactly. And I feel guilty for it now. I fantasize about, oh, maybe if I pushed harder for reunion, he could heal. But I was pushing really, really, really hard for a reunion before I started speaking out. And I don't think it's fair for me to take all the responsibility for his pain when he had moments he could have reached out on his own accord. In 2016, he purchased a house in Denver, a block away from where I was living with a partner. He could have accidentally walked by, and I'm not upset with him, but I do worry about his kid, his partners. I want a reunion every single day. I wonder what that would be like, and it terrifies me.
I pray that that happens in the most healthy and safe way possible and that it can be a beautiful experience, and it's really sad how many people go through what you did and don't experience a single day of walking away from it. Of course, it's hard losing things and walking away from security and what you've known your whole life. But to get the opportunity to have some type of healing, to potentially have love in your life that's authentic and not based off of some type of exchange or exploitation, or trauma bond, to see people that are born into that and that go through their whole lives and don't get to experience the whole reason why we're here is just so terribly heartbreaking. I hope we get to a point where all these people, your brother, your family members, everybody else that you're speaking on behalf of who's still enslaved in these systems, I hope we get to a point where there can be a mass exodus of people who just wipe their hands clean. They're like, okay, it's finally safe for me to leave. It's safer for me to leave than for me to stay here, not the opposite anymore. And so I'm gonna leave and come on the other side and be a survivor and not continue to be victimized by the slave system.
That's all I want for them.
That's all
Yeah,
we want.
there are so many of them who are, I think, beyond hope and are happy to continue perpetuating the cycle. But I know there are others who are just scared to
Yeah,
take the keys they are holding and unlock their chains.
exactly.
You know, but it's comfort. It's terrifying if you don't know any other worlds. It's
Exactly.
terrifying. Of course, I feel them.
And so another family member of yours, one that most people know by name, Jeffrey Epstein, when did you first encounter him in your life?
I don't know when I first encountered him. I know I last encountered him in 2007.
Okay.
That was in Aspen, Colorado. At that reunion, my father says, "Hey, remember my brother Jeffrey?" Jeffrey says, "Hey, it's great to see you again." I can't tell you. I probably remember 5 to 10% of what I was put through. I wish I had more on him.
Sure. And of course, that's been manipulated on the internet too, the
Of
familial
course.
relationships. It's funny
Of
how people
course.
go look at Google and just automatically discredit things because what it says. And it's like, you really think the things that they put on the internet, like the entire internet is skewed. Like we have to listen to people that are talking outside
When
of the internet to understand.
I'm telling you explicitly that documentation has been forged
Yes.
and they are checking against my claim by checking the documentation,
The cult-owned internet.
I can't help them.
I know I get that all the time too. Um, what are your perceptions? You have, I think, a really interesting perspective on the Jeffrey Epstein scandal and what we see in the public versus what you've been able to hypothesize through your own experiences and a little bit that you know. I'd love for you to shine a light on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Undoubtedly, Jeffrey was abused as a child. Undoubtedly, Jeffrey abused those teenagers. I also know for a fact he was not at the top of the food chain and was disappeared when he seemed to threaten those whose names we don't know. Those whose names we do know. I do not believe he killed himself. I do think it's likely he was going to open his mouth. Had pressure not to. I think he probably wanted to redeem himself on some front. But yeah, put simply, I think he was a pawn, a cog in the machine. He was not necessarily a good man, but the way the story has unfolded is a tragedy nonetheless.
And again, it doesn't excuse what he did, but again, if you can look
No,
at somebody's past and see like you said, was he getting ready to talk as a victim and wanted to become a whistleblower and share? And that's why he ended up being targeted because they usually do not put people out in the open that are compliant, that are part of these bloodlines and want to stay within them and do whatever it is that they can to stay within the family structure and this generational cycle. It's usually the people that they blast publicly are the ones somehow, whether it happened or not, if they speculate that somebody is trying to defect, those are usually the people that they throw under the bus. At least that's what I've seen.
exactly. Exactly.
And so that would make sense
Exactly.
with him that on some level he was maybe trying to break away or at least talking or even remembering, and they were like, no, we can't have that. It's going to take down too much. We're going to throw you under the bus. And like you've said before on social media and on Sean's interview, if people think that he's the problem, if they can just say, this is the problem, this is the only person out there that's perpetuating this, we need to take care of him. Oh, we did. He's all gone. Now you guys can
Exactly.
just go about
Problem
your
solved.
business and forget about it.
We can all hold hands and dance under rainbows now. Yeah,
Exactly.
right. Exactly. Exactly. It's embarrassing what's happening now. Everyone feels so gaslit, I think, them trying to claim there was never a client list.
Yes.
But I also do think continuing to ruminate just on Jeffrey is a dangerous way to keep people from trying to peer behind the curtain.
Yes.
They deserve answers. They deserve answers on why the cell footage was altered. But what can we do about it right now,
Right.
other than what we're doing right here?
Right. And as your story illustrates, I know we didn't talk about and we're not going to name tons of names and, put that out there, but your story does have and contains a lot of names, whether it was in politics, entertainment industry, so you have seen firsthand that it's not just one person doing this. This is a web of people and it's a
Yes.
network.
Of course. Exactly. And that's what makes it so dangerous.
And so, how often, when you were younger and even growing up, were you taken to these different locations where you would encounter these more high level, quote unquote, people?
I was taken regularly to Los Angeles and New York City. Was also taken to meet people in Mexico, Canada, England, France, Israel, and Jordan. Most frequently, these events would take place for me at resort towns in Colorado, away from the home. There was room for people to gather. It was a convenient location for them because it was so centrally located. I'd be hogtied on Saturday and studying for my math test on Monday.
And I know your father and stepmother were sort of the main perpetrators or handlers of this abuse. Did you have other perpetrators that were consistent in your life?
Of course, of course. My father's sisters, their husbands, and certain close friends who are considered, family friends, of course. And they're all still out there.
I'm sorry, that had to have been so hard growing up, and the people that were supposed to keep you safe were the ones perpetuating abuse on you. I can't imagine the betrayal. It's just the ultimate betrayal for a child.
It is. And I'm kind of over ruminating on my experiences.
Yeah.
My anger comes from the fact that so many in my life who experience something similar see nothing wrong with putting their own children through it again. I cannot understand it.
To your knowledge, have you had any corroboration, even if it wasn't public? I know your family hasn't come publicly. Has anybody acknowledged your memories being something that they remember as well? Or are your siblings still very much dissociated from their past?
My siblings and I don't communicate.
Yeah.
They won't. They're avoiding it.
Yeah.
I don't blame them for avoiding it.
Yeah. How old were you when you remembered? When was your very first memory?
Probably about two or three, because I remember the house in Boulder
Okay.
with my brother and mother.
Hmm.
I My first memory of meeting other siblings was when I was probably around 5.
Okay.
Was also back up in Boulder.
And then how old were you as an adult when you began remembering?
In 2020, I was just about 32.
Do you remember was it really random or what triggered a memory, do you think, to first? Was it safety or did something happen?
It was safety. The pandemic took a big part. I was passing pretty consistently as male. I kept getting casting calls for roles that required male nudity.
Oh no.
But when I had to put the mask on, from
Mm.
behind, people would start calling me she, her, who didn't know me. And it put some shock in me. It made me start questioning again why I did that. It made for me to ignore my biological reality. Um, I had many friends who were on the peripheries of the film industry. One of them just sat me down and told me, and I didn't listen to him, but the memories started creeping back anyways. My first memories were of being drugged
Oh.
and of my father and stepmother making confessions to me. The actual memory of the assaults didn't come till later. It was all piecemeal. It was maybe 2 years into that process, I was finally ready to acknowledge my connection to my twin brother.
How old were you when the abuse stopped? Was that during the transition as well, when that really stopped, or did it
Yes,
sort of start before that? Yeah.
yes, yes. It had slowed down a little bit in the years prior to that, simply because I was aging out of it being as much fun for them. I was too much work. The memories came back when the drug was administered, right?
Yeah.
So I would always fight back. I'd always try to kill them when I woke back up after the unconsciousness before my stepmother would administer anesthesia. Um, but it stopped altogether when I began taking testosterone. And then in 2017, 2 years after my medical transition, they begrudgingly let me move to New York. But I would still be drugged on occasion, and I would see them go visit them in Denver. I think because they had so much of it around. I can't understand it.
And ironically, in 2015 too, you're diagnosed with PTSD, and people aren't alarmed by that and sort of connecting it and saying, "Wait, let's figure out your PTSD first and heal that. And then afterwards, if you still want to transition, go for it." But it was like they just let you do everything and didn't connect that there could be trauma involved with your reasoning.
The Epsteins were arguing with my doctors. I found doctors that they didn't find for me who diagnosed me with PTSD. And they were saying nothing ever happened to her. She just has mental health problems. And the doctors are saying, no, she has PTSD. And I'm saying, I want to be a boy. It was a mess. It was a mess.
And obviously, too, for people listening, the Epstein connection was on your father's side.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, yeah, my mother's maiden name was Sadie. Um, but again, allegedly, and as far as I've been able to trace, she was my father's twin sister. So it's really just one side.
Yeah.
Yay.
More forged documentation.
Yay. Yes. Yeah, my father was the Epstein.
And then
My name on my birth certificate.
and then
Not that my
Jeffrey's
birth certificate means much, but
right. And then Jeffrey was related to him.
what I'm confused about, and other people are confused on this too, they share the same surname, and I was always introduced to Jeffrey as my father's brother.
Right.
but there isn't a record of them being brothers. I'm not sure why that would have been muddled while their names remained unchanged. That still doesn't make sense to me. But again, I wasn't in the boardrooms, I was unconscious. So
Exactly. And I'm sure there's many reasons we could come up with that could benefit them. Since Epstein, it's not that it's like a rare last name, but it's also not super common. So maybe it could have just been separating it, knowing that if something happened, there wouldn't
there'd be
be
this confusion.
exactly.
Right.
And they wouldn't connect your dad to maybe being a part of that or anybody in the family. It could just be looked at as two separate, same last name, but we have no relation to that. Who knows?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And so you started remembering, and at the same time, you're transitioning, you're also seeing a therapist who did diagnose you with PTSD. And so you finally had some type of an inkling of, oh, okay, I have trauma. So how did
As
you?
yes. As soon as I was able to acknowledge that, I decided to detransition back to female. I remember having some memories emerge, looking in the mirror with sheer terror at what I had done to myself. And then it was a year or two of people thinking I was a trans woman. It didn't matter how I tried to break it down for them. They'd always want to be like, I'd say, no, I was born female. I spent 5 years taking testosterone. I'm trying to heal from that and live as a woman again. And they'd say, so when are you going to cut your dick off? I'm like,
Oh my gosh,
I
people
never
say
had
that.
one.
Right. That's so mean.
It was absurd. It was absurd. Um, I've really had a 360 perception tour of gender experience. I'm grateful most people don't get anything like that. Yes, when that happened, and it was time to change my documentation again, I wasn't going to keep the name Owen. I liked the name Anya. It was it's the Russian nickname for Anna, so I just picked Anna and a random Russian surname, thinking I could just hide away from it all, and I couldn't. The more I remembered, the more it weighed on me to do something about it. I married someone I met on Tinder
You and
very
a lot of
quickly,
people.
very unstable, but he had a very cool last name I kept.
It is a
And
badass last name.
hmm,
It is a badass last name.
definitely,
Yep.
definitely. A little prettier than Epstein, too. So I am just trying to find my healing. It's been very up and down. I'm constantly feeling the pull of different directions, whether to keep whistleblowing or just lean into the arts. And the right answer feels completely different day to day. I remember more than I've ever wanted to remember. The details of the assaults don't necessarily serve me. I just don't want there to be any more people thinking that their responses to the horrors they experience are something that makes them wrong. It's the most uncomfortable feeling in the world. I want people to know that they are okay. The cycle of self-loathing for not feeling okay when you shouldn't be feeling okay is not okay. So I'm out here trying to learn how to build healthy relationships. It's been very messy and weird, and trusting people, not over trusting people. I never know how to open up without oversharing. I'm still very messy. I'm incredibly messy, and that's fine. That's fine. I can't imagine why I would have it more together.
In your healing journey, have there been things that have been really instrumental in helping? Different things that you've tried, or different types of therapy, or different, or maybe just a person? Have there been things that really helped accelerate your healing for you?
Different things work at different times. Time and life. I having a therapist guide EMDR, be there for talk therapy was
Yeah.
so instrumental. I was still in the memory recollection process and trying to break past the denial. But after the denial comes all this grief and fear, and you need something different. I do a lot of yoga, I try and meditate. There have been times when I've slipped up. I've started drinking too much or smoking too much weed. I'm sober now. I want to keep it that way. Thank goodness. Um, Opening myself up to romantic relationships without putting my entire sense of wellness into them.
Yeah.
Rebuilding friendships that are not just based in trauma. Finding hobbies that are not just beating the trauma to death. Distractions. Being around children is so helpful. This is one of the reasons why I still struggle with how to speak my truth and find a way to be a stable adult in the lives of my siblings' children. I don't know. Everyone has their own paths that they have to take. It's trial and error, and what works on one day won't work the next day.
Yeah.
But healing itself means different things. Are we talking about healing the severance of memories or healing the pain that comes from the de-severing? It's also cloudy.
Yeah.
Healing is not a linear graph. It's not even graph with waves. It's just a mess, a tangled mess.
Totally
That's
pull the
what's
tango
cloudy.
out.
Yeah.
And what about going on TikTok? You have built a beautiful community. How has that impacted you from, a mental, spiritual health level? And what has that brought into your life?
It's brought some sense of purpose, seeing how I've inspired others to confront their demons. It's also put a lot of weight and a lot of pressure on me and anger when I'm confronted with people who refuse to understand it or do understand it but are playing stupid. I don't know if it has been helpful for me. It's felt important. It's felt like I'm fulfilling a sense of responsibility, but it has made my life harder. Getting the support has been lovely, but it's also forced me to stay in the life around the pain when sometimes I don't want to think about it at all.
Yeah. And I've loved you've been putting more of your personal life on there with things that you do productively in your personal life to sort of cope with the pain, like your stand-up comedy and your art. You're starting to bring some of that onto your social media. And I think that's really fun that we get to see those sides of you too.
And I still haven't been posting enough of that. I don't want to, it's a hobby for me. I love and hate stand up.
How'd you get into that? Takes a lot of
uh,
courage to do that.
I don't know. needed a place to vent. You know what it is? I like being able to trauma dump without then having to comfort the people I just talked to. I'm so used to in my regular life, people finally getting me to take down the walls and me tell them who I am, what I've been through. And then them being so upset and terrified by it, me having to pat them on the back. It's kind of like, if you've had someone close to you pass away, and after a while, you're tired of people wishing you condolences.
Yes.
In comedy, I can say what's on my mind without then having to deal with comforting the other parties. I get them to laugh about it and see the absurdity of it, break down my own absurdities and how seriously I take myself, how ridiculous some of these situations are. Um, it's just a different mood. I'd rather be at an open mic than an AA meeting.
I think it's so neat that you do that. I'd be terrified to go up on stage and try to make people laugh, but I love that you're also helping people escape their own trauma. A lot of people go watch comedy to like cheer them up,
You
something
know
fun
what?
to do, get them away from their own problems, and you get to
I'm
help people like laugh and like relax out of that too.
I'm so neurodivergent. I was so robbed of a chance to learn how to socialize with peers as I should have. It's easier for me to speak to a crowd than have a conversation amongst one. Maybe that's because I did so much stage work as a child. I'm more intimidated by regular conversations. I'm more intimidated by trying to make a new friend or talk to a guy I think is cute.
The stage is a little bit more homey and comfy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When you walk through life feeling like there's a division between you and everyone else, that division of being on stage doesn't mean so much. It gives you more freedom to say things that maybe not polite to say in regular conversation.
What
And
else?
that's been tremendously helpful for me.
And it's fun to see it. Like I said, I really like that you started posting like little clips of it or behind the scenes stuff. It's neat to see that side of you because your social media, has been really sharing about your story and trying to lift other people up out of what they're going through. And it's neat to see some other sides of you just besides your past. We get to see what you're doing now and how you're sort of having fun in your life. What other things do you do for fun? And what else are you working on as far as your advocacy for survivors and for anything that you're doing on your social media?
That's kind of been it lately. I'm still trying to find a day job. It's been a few months since I've worked on my screenplay. Um, I've got a couple series that I want to develop. If none of that ever happens, I would love to just do what you do and help other survivors get their stories out there. But I'm overwhelmed right now.
Yeah.
I don't know where the path goes. I would love to go back to school for education.
You'd be so good as a teacher.
I would love it. I would really love it. I'm figuring it out. It's one day at a time, and the path seems to change from day to day. I'm just trying to get some stability, get my feet planted somewhere. It's been so chaotic the last few years. I've made it chaotic for myself, but it's wild.
Yeah, it's sort of like healing, how you were saying. It's kind of all over the place. Sometimes you have to take that string that's all tangled into a ball put it up in the air and just start like pulling the end that's free and trying to untangle it little bit by little bit. And that can look different every day. Some days you're going to come across a knot that you have to spend a lot of time trying to get out so you can pull it. Other times you're going to have to take the string and weave it through somewhere so you can get it free again, and I think it's really amazing how you've decided to help other people by sharing your journey, the highs, the lows, the goods, the bads, and helping people feel less alone. So much on social media, we just see people at their best. People put filters on and they're perfect and they're showing all these cool things that they're doing and making everything look perfect. And it can be so
I have to
lonely.
try very hard not to play into that game.
Yeah.
I grew up thinking I was ugly because I was comparing myself to my sisters in their photo shoots. We don't get to see what real women look like. I do go on there with makeup sometimes. I'm very intentional about never using a filter because it's just creating more dysmorphia for these younger girls, especially. I wish more of my sisters with professional entertainment platforms could do the same. Because when everyone is comparing themselves to false images, no one's good enough when they look in the mirror.
Right.
And I do struggle with that. There are times I broke my nose a couple times. I'd love to put it back in the middle of my face, whatever. Um, Aging naturally when so many women are not.
Yes,
It's hard.
it is.
Beauty standards are so much more stringent than they used to be. And we talk a big game about body positivity, but you have 12-year-olds using retinol.
I know. Yeah, these young girls getting Botox in their forehead to prevent wrinkles. They don't even have them yet. They're doing it to prevent it. It's just like, oh my goodness. Yeah, and then all these women.
As far as but you were talking about unfiltered content. Yeah, I want to
Yeah,
show the ugly. I want to show people that, of course, healing is emotional. Life is emotional. Men who want to be comics are dicks to pretty women that make them laugh. Like, I think everyone's more depressed because of social media, because of the comparisons,
yeah,
and
absolutely. It's
let's give
refreshing.
them something real.
Yes, your content's very
Uh,
refreshing. And I always feel whenever I watch you, like I know that it makes me feel good because I'm like, gosh, finally, like somebody who's being real on here. And I know for people who are struggling so bad and are in despair and don't feel hope, that can be so relatable and they can sort of just breathe, take a breath and be like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. Somebody else is admitting that they struggle and that life can be hard. They're taking me on that journey with them. It's really important work that you're doing, even though it's very vulnerable for you. Most people don't share that type of thing online. So you're doing something different, but it also makes you stand out. And I think people are craving that. People want real. They don't want to feel alone anymore. And in this filtered life, this filtered space, even on social media, and your work is like a breath of fresh air for a lot of people.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
And so for
More.
people that are watching, what is your handle? Do you want to share your handle for TikTok? That way people can find you. I'll bring it up on screen too.
I actually can't even remember what my handle is right now.
Let's
Yeah, go ahead.
let's bring it up.
Okay.
So your handle is,
Oh, yes, that's it.
yep.
Yep. Anna Wick, FKA Epstein. I tried to change it to Anya, the name I go by, but Anna Wick is my legal name.
Oh, and TikTok can be sweet.
Formerly,
It can be a little bit weird too with trying to switch on here.
I keep saying I'm good on the Switch and then don't let me, but that is my handle.
And she puts out a lot of content, super relatable. Like you can see it's not filtered, whether it's her face or what she's saying. It's really refreshing. She takes us on her journey with us, the good, the bad, the ugly, the wonderful. And you guys can keep up with her here. You give a lot of life updates too and share some of the fun parts of who you are, like the stand-up comedy. People can sort of, just get little glimpses into your life outside of your past and who you are today as a person. I think it's amazing. And then also I wanted to just bring up, she does have a fundraiser page. It's actually linked on her TikTok. survivors don't ever ask for money, and I know most of them feel horrible for even having any type of donation fund, but
I
my
didn't want to. I didn't want to. I had so many followers ask me to make a GoFundMe, and I wanted to be like, well, can you make one for me? Um, yeah, I didn't want to make a fundraiser page, but right now, while I'm trying to find work, I had to quit my bar job. It wasn't a healthy environment for me. It's what's letting me keep my phone bill on. It's what's letting me keep my storage unit paid while I'm trying to move out of the shelter I moved myself into to answer this court case where I wasn't allowed to speak. Um, it's been saving my life lately.
And what you're doing deserves compensation. It's a job doing content and helping people. You are doing outreach, you're doing podcasts for free. Everything that you're doing is from the goodness of your heart, where there's people that do this as a career and make tons of money from it. And you're actually helping people and you're doing it in a way that's inspiring people. You're helping people speak out for the first time. You're educating people on these different abuses that exist right in front of us that have been occulted. You deserve to be able to be funded to continue doing that. And
It
that's like
is,
my thing. Like survivors deserve, like, we need you guys up in the forefront. We need you here being able to do this full time. And unfortunately, the government's not going to give job positions of exposing what they're doing and the people involved with it. And so I always think, if we can help resource you and others until until things can be created, whether it's your own creation or, we end up funding you to where you can do this permanently and full time. As more and more survivors wake up, we need you on the front lines there to be able to help them through these hardships that they're going to go through and losing their family and understanding what's going to happen. We need you to educate therapists on dissociation and how to help heal people. We need you there to help educate people like me who didn't grow up like you on the types of things that are happening in our communities that we can go advocate for, and it's not cheap doing all of this. You need computers, you need different apps on your phone. Like, just for me to do this podcast, like, I pay out of my pocket to do it and it takes a lot of time, and
yeah.
I think that, like, you deserve to be able to do this. And so whether or not it's something that you're asking for, a lot of people want to contribute to this movement. I get asked all the time, what can I do? What can I do? Should I go donate to a nonprofit? What can I do? And it's like, go donate to a survivor who can use that to further be able to do what they're doing, to create books, to create a screenplay. That's not cheap either to be able to bring something like that to life, and
It's time. It's
it
time. And it's
is.
embarrassing. I hate being in my 30s and needing to ask for help. It's not where I
We need to help each other. We're at that point,
thought I'd be, but like I've only made $15 on TikTok, even uh, right.
That's horrible. You've gotten millions of views on some of your stuff. That's terrible that they're not, but
I thought about doing a subscription thing, but even then that becomes a full-time job that I need help being supported through while that takes off, if that's something I choose to do.
yes, and doing subscriber only lives or whatever it is that you can contribute to people who are paying that extra.
And then I feel gross about having only subscribers pay the extra for this content that I put out here because I want it to be available to everybody.
Yes,
It's complicated.
there is.
My relationship with money is just very complicated. My family was very financially abusive. Um, like making me buy my own birthday presents.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
I,
you deserve
I
it.
need I need a better relationship with money somehow.
Yes. And if people out there, if you have $1, $5, $10, and you genuinely want to contribute it or support, I'm going to have her donation link below. And if that's not something that you can do, an easy thing to do is go follow her on TikTok, download her videos on your phone, and go share them on your social media. Help grow her following,
Yes,
support her message. It's free, it's easy, and it's a really great way that doesn't seem like a lot, but it goes so far with supporting survivors to get other people to go acknowledge their story, to support them, follow them, and to educate people.
thank you.
You're welcome. And if there's any
Thank you.
survivors listening, which I know there will be, do you have any words of encouragement or hope that you can give them today?
Take the plunge. It's easier to breathe. You didn't do anything to invite any abuse you faced, and you did nothing wrong with putting up for it or being quiet about it. There's nothing wrong with you, but you don't have to put up with it anymore. Face it at in your own time. Be as kind to yourselves as you are to others. I know for many of us, we go way too hard on ourselves. It's scarier waiting, deciding whether or not you're going to speak than it is to just speak. Don't do it for you. If you can't do it for you, if you can't love yourself enough to speak for yourself, speak for the other survivors, because I know you have compassion for them. That's all I've got.
And I can see that crossing over to your family too, if they happen to see any of your interviews, you know, that's what we hope for them too.
I really got to get a new phone. But yes, that message extends to my family. Of course it does. I know some of you are watching. I love you. I hope you know that. Emma, I can't thank you enough. Let's chat soon. We can stitch this on at the end. My phone was charging. But thank you. Thank you so much. Never in my wildest dreams